The doctrine of inevitability of gradualism. Okay, now why the name Fabian? The Fabian Society. Well, this is after General Quintus Fabius Maximus. He had a brilliant strategy. He advanced in his battles not through front-on battles, but instead through harassment and attrition. In other words, he wore everybody out. Almost like overwhelm your opponents, overwhelm the system. He would just constantly wear them out and just hit them, little ones, hit them, until finally they were just worn out from the harassment. And then it became inevitable. Gosh, is it becoming inevitable that we just can't get out of this debt bubble? Little step at a time? All right, Fabian Socialist, one of the early members was George Bernard Shaw. This is a man who is highly regarded still to this day. This is a guy who won a Nobel Peace Prize, who won an Oscar. The BBC described him this way: a iconoclastic playwright, journalist, a scintillating public speaker, arts reviewer, and campaigning socialist. Well, here's what everybody ignores from Shaw. This. Watch.
Just put him there and say, "Sir or Madam, now will you be kind enough to justify your existence?" If you can't justify your existence, if you're not pulling your weight in the social vote, if you're not producing as much as you consume, or perhaps a little more, then clearly we cannot use the big organization of our society for the purpose of keeping you alive, because your life does not benefit us, and it can't be of very much use to yourself.
It's not useful to you or to the society. It's horrifying stuff, yet I guarantee you your son or daughter has never heard a bad thing about this man. He's critically acclaimed by the establishment. It may be tough for them to swallow, but he is a monster. No one talks about the genius of Hitler's good ideas like the Volkswagen. The good ideas don't balance out the bad ones. The man was a monster. Shaw was a famous playwright, but he was also a strong believer in eugenics. It was George Bernard Shaw. Ask yourself if you ever learned this. Ask your kids if they learned this. Who dreamt up the gas chambers, the death chambers? Who did? George Bernard Shaw dreamt them up to get rid of the undesirables. Quote, "A part of eugenic politics would finally land us in an extensive use of the lethal chamber. A great many people will have to be put out of existence simply because it wastes other people's time to look after them." I don't care that he wrote witty little plays. The man was a monster. All of this stems from the same place: Fabian socialists, Marxists. And what was it that Hillary Clinton called herself during the campaign when she was embarrassed to answer if she was a liberal? She said this:
"I prefer the word progressive, which has a real American meaning, going back to the progressive era at the beginning of the 20th century.
At the beginning of the 20th century. At the end of the 19th century, and it came roaring into America at the beginning of the 20th century. They believe in what's good for the collective. They're also secular humanists. God at best is something to hang on to just in case. They are the people that you must have evolution. You must have evolution. If you can take God out of the picture and have evolution, then this is all okay to do it. When you think the way these guys do, you tend to dehumanize individual situations. Suddenly, you're convinced that it's okay to kill one person or two in order to save thousands or end suffering for either thousands or for one. It's how Shaw, Sanger, and now the global warming nuts all end up into the same place where they're saying, well, so we have to eliminate a few people or throw them in prison because they disagree. Those in pain, those who are inferior, and I guess now those who are skeptics. They have convinced themselves that the world will be destroyed unless they step in to save the day. It is the ultimate God complex. Gee, who did we say on last night's show had a God complex? Oh yeah, that's right, George Soros. It is a sort of disease when you consider yourself some kind of God, the creator of everything, but I feel comfortable about it now since I began to live it out. There are only two possible ways a society ends. If you believe in God, you believe in redemption. You believe the Messiah comes, and there's redemption, and it's a beautiful ending. But if you have a God complex, well, you know that it's going to end in chaos. There's always something that's going to destroy the world. I mean, first it was nuclear war, or world war, then it was nuclear war, then it was nuclear winter, then it was global cooling, then overpopulation, now it's global warming. Chaos. Chaos is the only end. If you don't believe in God, chaos is how it always will be. So somebody, the smart, the fit, those who understand, will step in and stop it. This is where we're headed, and I will show you where it goes next, and how it travels from England to here, and how much has already been accomplished, and why you must vote. Coming up.
There's a little button here. Now everybody, please remember to read chapters 5 and 6 on volcanoes and glaciation.
If I were a mother of a suffering child, I would be the first to want, I mean a deeply suffering child, I would be the first to want to put a pillow over its face.
Dr. Peter Evans
as I would with any suffering thing. And I think the difference is that
with any suffering thing. I want to show you an ad that is now running in New York for climate change. Warning, shocking. Pull it full screen, please. Where do you get these ideas? But you're the fearmonger. You imagine opening up a magazine and seeing that with your child. Well, you get these ideas from the minds of monsters, progressives, the early 20th centuries, and the Fabian socialists. Fabian socialism is what we're talking about. The mentality spread to America, and it is here. The president's new head of Medicare and Medicaid, Don Berwick, who, by the way, was placed in power by the president who circumvented the system. Why would you have to do that? We told you under Obamacare there would be inevitably rationing. President said no. Every newspaper around, every journalist said that was crazy talk. But according to Berwick himself, quote, the decision is not whether or not we will ration care. The decision is whether we will ration with our eyes open. So who picks? Who picks who lives or dies? Hopefully it's somebody as compassionate as that mother on the BBC. Here's why the stories from England matter. We will be there soon. Berwick has actually stated that he's in love with England's healthcare system. They got their system from Fabian socialists, who founded the London School of Economics. They are the main think tank behind the Labour Party. They've got people drinking water from plants and having women have babies in corridors. A 22-year-old man died of thirst after begging for water and being completely neglected. Say what you will about our problems with our systems here, but no one has ever died of thirst at one of our hospitals. But has anyone ever died in the closet of a hospital here in America and put intentionally, compassionately into that closet so you couldn't hear the child's screams as it died? Yes. Yes, here in America. A baby that didn't die from an abortion was left in a U.S. hospital in Illinois, left in a laundry room so no one would hear. There was a law voted on to prevent this thing from ever happening again. But guess who didn't vote for it? Guess who showed up only to vote present? Illinois State Senator Barack Obama. Why? Oh, and the response to the UK hospital deaths was that the nurses have to sign a public pledge that they'll treat everyone with compassion and dignity. Yes, but I've heard compassion already today from someone.
If I were a mother of a suffering child, I would be the first to want, I mean a deeply suffering child, I would be the first to want to put a pillow over its face.
Dr. Peter Evans
as I would with any suffering thing. And I think the difference is that
Okay. Here's a mother saying it's compassionate to smother. What's the difference? It's what happens when you're under the influence of a Fabian socialist or progressive model. Human life is devalued, just as our dollar is being devalued, and they are connected. Because the only reason you would have to ration something like medical care is when there is a shortage of supply, of doctors, or of money. Suddenly, those who have to decide who lives or dies, they have to decide. You may have to decide. I'd feel better if we had to decide ourselves, but it's not. It's going to be in the hands of a government official, a progressive or a Fabian socialist like it is over in England. It's a cold calculation based on the greater good for society. It's called, look it up. Please don't take any of this myself. Look it up. Zeke Emanuel, White House. It's called the Complete Lives System. It's how George Bernard Shaw can propose lethal chambers. It's how this woman can advocate smothering children with pillows. It's how environmentalists can justify executing skeptics. It's how Obama's science czar, John Holdren, who believed in the wildly discredited idea of the population explosion, can propose putting sterilants in drinking water and forced sterilizations and a planetary regime, i.e., global government, to monitor global population size. It's for the greater good, you see. It's compassionate. It's not evil. They believe in these things. I want to show you a picture of Tony Blair. Now, this is Tony Blair, and he's standing in front of a window. Stained glass window. This isn't about Tony Blair. It's about Tony Blair commemorating the 150-year birthday of George Bernard Shaw. The window that he's standing next to, can we pull a cleaner copy up or not? The window that he's standing next to, here it is. This is the Fabian Socialist window. It was commissioned by Shaw for the Fabian Socialist. Now, what's going on in the window? Well, they are fanning the flames with the bellows, and they are reshaping the world. They're helping to build a new world. How are they doing that? With hammers. This one is Shaw, along with the other founding members. By the way, that's founding member H.G. Wells on the bottom left that's doing this, a man who had an affair with none other than Margaret Sanger and predicted when the history of our civilization is written, it'll be a biological history and Margaret Sanger will be one of its heroines. How are they building the new world? How are they building it? With hammers. With hammers. Now, it's the power of persuasion. Here we are. Power of persuasion. Right? Or is it the... Well, how was it? Was it that Andy Stern said again? I'm trying to remember.
We're trying to use the power of persuasion. And if that doesn't work, we're going to use the persuasion of power, because there are governments and there are opportunities to change laws that affect these companies. I'm not naive. We're ready to strike.
The persuasion of power. When we come back, a little more on this, and then I'm going to tie it all together and show you what's happening here. Next. America, the reason why you've not heard about the things we're talking about tonight, Fabian socialism and the idea of the early 20th century progressive movement, is because it's very hard to explain, it's very complex, they make you into a lunatic if you talk about it. That's why I ask you, don't believe anything that I say. Please don't take it as gospel. Look this all up yourself. You will be... I believe everybody on my staff, as they do research themselves, and I say, no, go get this, go get this, go this, I think they began not believing me. Now, I think, I just talked to somebody in the control room, they said, I think it's very clear, Glenn, but horrifying. It is, especially when you start to see the pieces all come together, which we'll try to do for you tonight, but we're running out of time.